When Nikki Haley became Donald Trump's only competitor, many thought she'd be forced from the race. Almost all Trump's former rivals in the party have offered their rapid affections. Others who would criticize Trump admit to fearing violence from his supporters. Haley, who once defended much of the conduct she now criticizes, is not backing down, staying in the race to challenge Trump and to challenge all those who would line up behind him. CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns is on the campaign trail.
I'm not going anywhere.
On the verge of losing her home state primary, Nikki Haley is defying calls from Donald Trump to drop out of the race.
I feel no need to kiss the ring. I have no fear of Trump's retribution.
Pledging to play on through Super Tuesday, Haley slammed Trump as unelectable.
He's gotten more unstable and unhinged. He spends more time in courtrooms than he does on the campaign trail. He's so obsessed with his own demons from the past, he can't focus on delivering the future Americans deserve.
And in a rare emotional moment, Haley spoke about her husband, Michael, deployed overseas with the National Guard.
I wish Michael was here today, and I wish our children and I could see him tonight, but we can't.
But so far, the former South Carolina governor hasn't been able to dent Trump's more than 30-point lead in the polls. The former president was greeted by enthusiastic supporters in Greenville before attending a town hall and a fundraiser. Trump supporters say Haley should get out of the race and let him focus on Biden.
The Republican Party's not giving funds to Trump, until there's one primary person. So that's hurting Trump, too.
President Biden is heading into the general election with a cash advantage over Trump, who spent nearly $50 million on legal fees last year. The Biden campaign is reporting he has $130 million in the bank after raising $42 million in January.
And Caitlin Huey-Burns joins me now from Greenville, South Carolina. You've been with Haley, covering her since for a very long time, and certainly since New Hampshire. Caitlin, how have her critiques of Trump changed as you've watched it since New Hampshire?
Well, John, she certainly sharpened them here, which is an interesting strategy given Trump's popularity here. As we've talked about before, this very much feels like Trump's home turf, not necessarily Nikki Haley's. But what's been interesting over the past couple of weeks is that she's really been focused on the court cases, the Trump indictments, and the idea that he's going to be spending the next several months in a courtroom. Remember, over the course of this campaign, Trump's rivals were really hesitant to criticize him on the court cases at all, and at many points they rallied to his defense and really helped kind of shore up his support in terms of the defense against those indictments. She has really kind of made that centerpiece of her campaign pitch here, and this is part of a broader pitch about electability in November, but that's just not resonating with Republican primary voters that she needs to get. The electability argument, many of them tell us that they believe Trump is electable and that Republicans have been trying to tell them who's electable and have not, been successful in the past.
And what of the other argument that Haley has made, which is essentially that in the way Donald Trump has responded to her, even though he's well ahead and seems poised to head to the nomination, the unhinged, as she calls it, way he has reacted to her says something about his capacity to manage the job that he's applying for. Has any Republican voters even noticed that argument?
Yeah, she's said that he's, unfit to be president, essentially, even though she worked for him in his administration and voted for him twice. And she's trying to kind of explain to voters that he has changed since then. But what's interesting, too, John, South Carolina is a big military state, and she's been really leaning into his comments on NATO, his comments about her husband who's deployed overseas. And that also is not really penetrating here. There was a new Suffolk University USA Today poll out today that showed a 35-point lead for Trump. But interestingly enough, too, they looked at military families, and Trump had a 30-point lead among military families as well. And a lot of, his past and comments are kind of baked in. And a lot of Trump supporters are telling us that they kind of feel nostalgic about his presidency and value his job as president more than Haley's job as governor here.
They say you can't go home again. That may be true for the former South Carolina governor. Caitlin Huey-Burns in Greenville, South Carolina. Thank you.